Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome back. We're here again.
This is Christina.
This is Claudia,
Welcome back to Evilly Yours English, the podcast where we explain and complain your favorite and least favorite words in English.
as well as our favorite and least favorite words in English.
We're not here
As
for
you
that.
can see right now, Christina is outside. She
We
outside.
outside. Yeah, because if you live in the east, on the East Coast, you know we suddenly had, we completely skipped the middle season of spring. We went from 30 to 88, like it was nobody's business. Like nobody does it like New Yorkers. So
Correct. And I was looking in like a week or two. It's supposed to start. We're supposed to start a Monday at 37 degrees. My mother was so disappointed because she wanted a garden. And I said, hey, Ma, there's going to be a baby frost, but it's going to go up to like 60 something that day, too. She's like, ugh. I've
the
never seen,
struggle's real.
I've never seen that woman so distraught over, over not being able to garden. It's crazy.
If you're a gardener and you're trying to garden in this climate, blessings unto thee. I mean, you must be like lamenting the loss of all your crops. Not crops, flowers, plants, not crops. Happy Orthodox Easter to you.
And to you.
And
Doing
we
our
have a guest speaker. If you can see, this is my dog. I hope he stays the whole time because we're going to be referencing his namesake in a little while, Wolfgang.
Yay! And I just love
So
looking
we'll.
at him. I'm just going to keep looking at him.
He's so regal, right?
Oh my God, stop.
This is your dog nephew. What is the word you use for him?
My God, pup, what's wrong with you?
Oh my god, I'm sorry.
Wait, hold on. So that was just very well timed. Right now, Rogue is trying to figure out how to get on top of my desk. Rogue is my gray cat. If anything, we might have a pet appreciation post at some point. But she literally like meerkatted right now, and I was just,
Oh, wasn't it just Pet Appreciation Week or something? I mean,
well,
day?
we're gonna do it by our own rules, baby.
Before we get way too stuck on our pets, because I think that's pretty believable for us. Especially if you're just listening and you're not watching and you can't see our pets. We're not here to bore you with descriptive visions of our pets, right?
But
So,
while you're at it, why are you just listening? Why not see us too? Because then you can see our pets.
true. And if you don't have the patience to watch a YouTube, like a repeated YouTube of what you listen to, you can just watch clips on TikTok or come to our gram and talk to us there.
Anyway,
So many, so many
that's what
options.
we do, girl. What we do.
So, we found out how incredibly dorky we can be while we were doing this deep surface level dive into the history of English. We spent some time originally, when we opened this podcast, talking about Greek and Latin roots, but
Mhm.
last week we spent a little bit of time talking about the Germanic and Old Norse roots of English, which is really where English started. Um, as we continued down these depths, we found out that Johannes von Printing Press is really to blame for the endless struggle that students and adults all encounter with the words there, and there. If you listened, you know, and hopefully you can spell them in your mind's eye. But with the printing press, Johannes helped us standardize text, written English. So although the words there, and there are such a pain in the ass to spell in a rush, we cannot refute their usability as a whole. And extra points to you if you know which word I said in the correct order. Guess
Mhm.
what? You probably can't because I didn't give you freaking context.
Okay.
I wanted to highlight that point because that's going to be super important for our words today.
I got you, girl. I got you. It is minute, minute, and minuet. And we'll be getting into some new necessary pieces of vocabulary, I think one in particular, to explain how these words came to be. Now, story time. Honestly, minute and minute, whenever I'm reading, really fuck me up. Every time. Like, I'll be so engrossed in my reading, and then I reach a sentence with either of these words, right? And so typically stop it with the paw. And typically, my default is to go to minutes. I don't know if it's mainly because, like, that's what, I'm used to, what I use the most. It's likely that. I don't know. But I will get to a sentence that has that spelling, and it will often default to minute. So then it'll be like, the minute detail, it's like, what? So now I need to pause my what was once a fully engrossed reading sesh to realize, recognize, and correct to minute. And so, it's honestly just been super frustrating, especially when it just throws me off my groove, especially since it takes me a little bit to get into my groove. And then even with like students that I would just have them sometimes read sections of a reading out loud, that it would also happen to them that they would say minute instead of minute, and we would have to have this whole like discussion of like, hey man, like I know that it's spelled minute, but it's actually pronounced minute. And then we would have this like, what the hell conversation about how weird it was, and then they would correct themselves and keep going. So yeah.
I think you definitely paved the way for some of our ratings there. But just talking about how the problem with words that are spelled the same and when we're reading can be really confusing, particularly if one of them maybe we've been using more than others. So I think the one that we'll start with is the minute, as in there are 60 minutes in an hour, as in give me a minute, as in time. So I'm going to refer to this one as the temporal minute. Temporal meaning time. So I think we all learn minutes when we are learning about time, even as an expression, give me a minute. We use those things as expressions to say, hang on, I need time. So this ultimately comes from the concept of time, but a small amount of time. It comes from the Latin minutus, which meant made small. Later turned into minuta, and then there was an old French moment, which we're going to get to with some of the other derivatives, and medieval Latin, which refers to people writing in Latin texts, particularly like religious scripts. We got the expression pars minuta prima, which meant the first minute part.
But also, actually,
I also wasn't sure if it was minute.
I'm crying.
I was like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
But again, this one sets the tone for the rest of today's words. So the rest of the words will have descended from minute, as in the temporal minute. So pars minuta prima, I'm messed up right now. Pars minuta prima means the first small part. And we can think about this as the 60-second divisions of a minute, and then the 60 minutes of an hour, right? So they're the smallest parts of a whole. We can further refine seconds, coming from pars minuta secunda, the 60 seconds in a minute, make up the 60 minutes of an hour, so on and so forth. And this brought me to an interesting trivia moment, Claudia, that I thought I would share with you. So I know how you feel about leap years.
Yes.
So it turns out you can have leap seconds, and you can also have negative leap seconds. So you can, so a leap year is an adjustment. So the international atomic clock time and then the observed solar time can like coincide better and like suit our human man-made construction of time. All of this is related to irregularities in the Earth's really slow and constantly changing rotation. Science, the atomic clock will create 61 seconds in a minute, or a negative minute, or negative seconds, which will be 59 seconds in a minute, to kind of even out, to make sure everything's always the same duration.
I hate it. I hate it.
I was crying. Yeah.
Thanks, I hate it. That's all I have to say to that. That just is so unnecessary. Especially since time is but a construct.
Time is but a construct, and even science reflects that, which is just so wild. In just a leap second, we're going to move on to the next word.
To minute.
Yes.
Excellent.
So we started with the temporal minute. Now we're moving on to minute. Sounds different, spelled the same, means extremely, extremely small.
Mm-hmm.
Minuscule, if you will.
Wow. Not the minuscule. I got you. So, as pointed out, they are spelled the exact same way, but they are pronounced very differently to clearly show us the different meanings between them. And honestly, it seems that they are derived from very similar things, going through Latin, going through Old French, medieval Latin, and then going into Middle English. Now, if you were here last week, you know exactly what we were talking about Old French. Okay. Minute has a stress on the first syllable, and it's a short vowel I sound. And so it's kind of like a schwa vowel. The I sound where the U is the one that can be 60 seconds or just a small amount of time, like itty bitty, ooh, minute, ooh. The second minute with the long vowel I, stress on the second syllable, and a long U sound. So honestly, the point of all of this was likely to eliminate any sort of confusion in the lack of context, because they do have similar meanings with the exact same roots, as already discussed. Annoying.
Yeah, so I just thought that was so interesting that, we always talk about like there's some guy who made the rules to English. So that guy looked at minute and minute and he was like, nah, we got to say those differently. Too close, same root word, both mean small components of something larger.
Damn
Those got to
Von.
have different pronunciations,
Damn Von.
which is super helpful in conversation. You'll never mess it up when you're talking and you're automatically producing those words, right?
Mhm.
But look at how much of a hard time we were having just reading the words because the spelling's the same.
And we're both experts. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, you were even saying before, when you read them, you'll have to pause to make sure you got the context.
I've never spent so much time having so much anxiety, except in that like 30-second moment where I'm reading things.
Your brain's like, oh, it's minute, and then you're like, no, that doesn't make sense, right? And you'll have to readjust. But if I'm saying it to you, there's no question because you heard the pronunciation.
Right. Yes.
New word, vocab alert. These are called heteronyms.
Woo!
Who knew we left one out?
Not I. I can tell you that much. I thought we were pretty encompassing here.
So English is really specific. You have all sorts of combinations. So every permutation of linguistic possibility has its own name. So heteronyms are yet another descriptive term for words that are spelled identically but are pronounced differently and have different meanings. These exist because of our ever-changing, ever-evolving English language. These words with the same spelling and different pronunciation are always a challenge for anyone trying to learn English. Or look at us. We are L1 language speakers, English language speakers, and we still have to give pause when we're reading to make sure we got the right one.
Big struggle bus.
Right?
Hetero, from the Greek heteros.
Heteros.
Heteros. I'm just making sure I'm covering all my bases with pronunciation, because you never freaking know. Okay? At some
All the
point,
possibilities.
it's gonna land. So, meaning the other of two, another, different, second, other than the usual, and then onym, meaning name, from the root nomen. Okay, again, this is just more, Greek stuff that we need to talk about on, oh my god, and it's Easter! Well, Orthodox Easter. Applicable. I love it. I love full circles. Hi.
So when scholars looked back at ancient Greek compound words, so that's two words you put together, so essentially the way you get like two roots or a prefix and a root compounded into a new meaning, a word with a new meaning, they had a lot of compound words using hetero because Greeks were very binary. So it was like you're Greek or you're not, you're Hellenic or you're not. Period. End of story. So, for example, they had heterocrates, which was true Cretan. That is of the. I'm still crying. Of
Okay.
the old stock. I don't know why that makes me
So,
laugh
like,
so
old
much.
stock in what sense? Like, old stock,
The old
like,
Crete, but it's also a Cretan, which is a homonym for Cretan.
so,
I gotta mute.
like, would a old, so then, would it be like an old, like, person? An old Cretan? Would it,
So like the OGs from Crete, not like a conquered person or a moved person. We're talking like 4000 BC, right? Maybe 2500 BC. Anyway, before zero.
Oh, Jesus.
So you can see it was either you were an OG person from Cretan or you were not. But the ancients also used heteroglossus, glossus meaning tongue, so that meant you spoke another language. Did it matter what language it was? Nah, it wasn't Greek. That was all that mattered.
It's no Greek.
Yeah, yeah. And so on and so on. Heterosexual. That's not an ancient Greek word, but same idea, right? It's a binary term. So you can
Not
see
all
this,
Greeks.
even this concept of hetero being this or that, and then the other thing being othered, is an old concept. It's not just something we do today. So anyway, moving on.
Whoop. Hitting deep. Hitting deep.
While we were putting this episode together, the internet kept adding minutes, as in meeting minutes, to another definition for this word. And I was like, I guess that makes sense because it's not authentically a temporal minute, like 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It's the time spent in a meeting that are then recorded in text. And there's actually a reason for that. So, minutes, as in recording a meeting, as in, Mary, put them on hold. I have to finish reviewing the morning meeting's minutes to see what the hell I'm talking about. Right? Like those kind of minutes. If you've been to a Zoom conference, you know what I'm talking about.
Girl.
So this particular version of minute is very clearly related to the temporal minute. So way before Johannes von Printing Press, scribes would handwrite texts and books, usually the Bible, because this is the medieval era. I guess it was pretty much only the Bible being written at that point in time.
That knew how to read and write. Well, one of the only ones that knew how to read and write.
Yeah, and they were monks, so they're going to be transcribing the Bible over and over again. Franciscan monks were doing this repeatedly, and that was kind of like what they did. That was their profession at the time. So you would have drafts, just like you do when you're writing an essay. You have a rough draft, a first draft, second, all the way to final. It turns out that the French, of course, so Old French, took the Latin word minutus, minuta, in the mid-16th century to specifically differentiate a rough copy, which was written in small writing. Minute?
Minute writing?
Minute minutes from a fair copy. So these are written in larger book style, so that's what's going to get circulated. This is before von Printing Press, so we didn't have publishers yet. It was just you're writing this over and over again. That was the differentiation, and that is the origin of meeting minutes. It came from the Bible.
Oh, hey, did you hear that he rose from the dead last weekend? Crazy.
Let me put that into my morning meeting minutes. Hold on.
Oh my god, that minute detail, making it into the minutes, crazy. And now, we get to minuet. Now, this one is spelled slightly different, mostly different. I feel like you can differentiate it. What did I just say? Differentiate it from the other minutes, minute, if you will. So, its origin is French from menu. A minuet is a social dance of French origin. For two people, it's usually taking place in 3/4 time. I believe that's usually a waltz. And our girl, Judith Martin, really describes it really nicely here. And she says, the dinner table is the center for the teaching and practicing, not just of table manners, but of conversation, consideration, tolerance, family feeling, and just about all the other accomplishments of polite society except the minuet. And so here we have an English word that was adopted from the Italian minuetto and the French menuet. And as this quote suggests, as Miss Judas, it all comes back to Judas.
Judas.
And as Miss Martin over here suggests, it's very posh. It's a French moment. Okay. And so the idea for this is that the steps of the dance are elegant, ceremonious, and most importantly, small. The name may refer to the short steps, pas minute.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, look at me. Like I'm fluent. Taken in the dance. And we do have an example of the true form of the minuet. In Don Giovanni by Mozart.
My dog's name is Wolfgang, and he was named after Mozart. So this is, if you're watching, this is Wolfie. Hi, Lisa.
Aww.
When he was a puppy and we were introducing him to people, one of my favorite memories was we told him his name was Wolfgang, and this random in the street was like, "Oh, is he musically inclined?"
Yeah.
I
What?
was like, "He's a piano genius."
He's a pianist.
Nailed it. He was a pianist. Yeah, I don't know what he's looking at. I have Cheez-Its here too. Not sponsored, but yeah, Cheez-Its, Grammarly, kind of the same vibe, you know, sitting and doing your work. But that's a wrap on minute, minute, minutes, and minuet. So, Claudia, I think it's time to rate these little ladies here.
Let's go. Functional usability. I give her. Okay. Hear me out. I give it a 1. just for the fact that we could have had different spelling, but we chose not to.
So, I would say 2, because I feel like that's taking an average, because, like, continent, as in land, minute is even more common. Like, that's a tier 1 word?
Feels right.
Yeah, 60 seconds are in a minute, 60 minutes are in an hour. Like, if you're living and using time.
I hear you. It's more so minute. Minute could have been spelled differently. Minutes, like the writing ones. We could have even just said notes, meeting notes, and just called it a day.
I'm dying. So I was going to say, so for meeting minutes, as far as functional goes too, not everyone goes to meetings where there are many at all, period, where then there are meeting minutes that need to be taken. And then minuet, that is a word that's died out because ain't nobody dancing the 3/4 time.
What are you talking about? I was just dancing to it like not that long ago. The Hail.
That Ice Spice remix.
So I'd be willing to push it to a 2, but even then, like, it just makes me mad.
My thing is, of the 4 versions, one of them is so highly usable and functional, I think it brings it to the 2. That's but I do think the other 3 are not as usable to the masses. So we're going to go with 2.
Fine.
Oh, yeah. Hotly contested 2. Okay. Pronounceability. So I think it definitely has like a Frenchness to it with the silent E and minute. It's like kind of like, why is that there? And then minute has a whole other pronunciation that is not remotely familiar to English.
No.
And then meeting minutes are just plural minutes. And minuet is somehow like more phonetically appropriate. That's a damn 1.
I don't know. French is French. French be French.
French be Frenching. I would give it a 1 because of the confusion and the fact that the only way you 100% know what's going on without any need for context is when you're speaking. So you have to pronounce it right no matter what. And then pronounceability is gone in text.
Yes, agree.
For the temporal and for the small.
I agree. Yes. For all of it. The temporal and the small.
Ooh.
It sounds like name, like not superlatives, but it's like, you know how it's like in Game of Thrones, it's like Robert the blank.
Like William the Bastard.
Oh, I'm dumb. Yeah.
Or Roland the Farter.
Yeah, it's minute the temporal.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we agreed on the 1 there?
Yes.
Emotions?
I already said that I'm stressed between minute and minute. So. Wow.
Okay, so
hey, that's crazy.
I think they evoke stress when you're confused, but I don't think the actual contents of the words gives any emotion unless you are at a meeting and you don't want to be there and you're the one taking the minutes and you're mad. Then the minutes will stress you out.
Although typically, like, it's usually the same person. At least in
Yeah.
meetings I've been, it's typically the same human.
I would say a 2 then.
Yeah. Mouthfeel, honestly, they are fun to say. I feel I like minute, minuet. Something about the
I think saying minute, like when you know you're using it correctly and you're using it to be really descriptive, you feel so like lingual.
yeah, so lingual.
You're like, oh.
Yes,
I guess that's more emotional than mouthfeel, but it feels great to say minute
it
when you
does.
like know you're
When
saying it
you
and you're
know,
using it right.
yeah, because you know that you're like, ooh, I'm being smart.
I'm using that French version.
Ooh, en français.
Whole French parlay.
Parlay. They hate us. It's fine. I feel like the length is pretty good. Like, I would say it's somewhere between a 2 and a 3.
That sounds like 2.5.
It does. It's giving a 2.5 for me. Babes. Semantic impact. Specificity and connotations. Okay. So, with my noot, I would say, or not my noot, minuet. There is a specificity there. Same with minute. Um, so I'd probably give it another solid 2.5.
Oh, we're just really in the decimal system this week.
You're welcome. Oh, 3. Its reliability on its roots, 3.
Yeah, there is, and I love that they all come from so obviously the same word, and like minute as in temporal minute was the OG, and everything else was like, well, we want to use this indication for a small segment of time, so let's just change the way we say this word, but use the same spelling. And then, oh, we'll do a small step dance. That's a minuet. I just love it. It's just so extra.
Well, I'm not sure if you were going for a French person speaking English or like, you know how when like in movies they'll be like, oh, this takes place in France, but they all speak in accented English. Ooh.
Yeah, it was probably that one, the latter, but for all intents and purposes, whenever I do an accent, we're gonna say it's the Antarctican accent.
Of course, yes. Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I
Mm-hmm.
love it.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
We've reached the end of this minuet of minutes and minute minutes. There we go. Boom. I did it. Wow.
If you'd like to see our meeting minutes, you can go to our link tree and go to our pod notes. We have a whole Google Doc folder full of our minutes, if you will.
Yes, on our link tree. But if you would like to see us do this full minuet with our beautiful faces here, not necessarily our feet, you can definitely watch us on YouTube at Evilly Yours English. You can also catch us doing these minuets on TikTok and Instagram at evilly.yours.english. But if you just want your ears to experience the beautiful minuet that we have going on here, Spotify at evilly.yours.english. And tell the people where we're at now. Where are we
YouTube?
also? I mean, well, we already
Oh,
talked about YouTube. But we are also on iHeartRadio and Apple Podcasts and Amazon Music.
so you have no excuse. Find us somewhere. You have at least one of these accounts. So figure it out, subscribe, support, and get Grammarly and Cheez-Its to sponsor us. If you're listening and you're not looking, my dog Wolfgang was here making his debut appearance, so come through to see how cute he is. If you watched this episode to the end, leave a little wolf emoji in the comments wherever you are.
We'll see you in the next episode, which will be our book club episode.
It's going to be our second book club, so we will catch you there next week.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.